Hi guys, week 5 of distance learning. And last week I talked a little bit about getting started on the types of drugs and the different categories and methods of use. So one of the questions on the ticket out was, do you have any questions or do you need any more clarification on whether the drug category or methods of use? So I did get some questions. So I want to clarify a couple things, and then I'm going to move on today to talk about the brain, because before we get into the specifics of each drug, you need to know how somebody gets addicted, why somebody gets addicted, how the brain, when that drug enters the body, just takes over. And basically, it hijacks that brain. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about a couple things. First, there was a question for the method of use on absorption. Okay, so again, the fastest method of use is injection. Absorption is if somebody were to put a lotion on, like a medicated lotion, if somebody has eczema or psoriasis, which is a skin condition, and they go to the physician and they get a special kind of lotion that helps, clear it up, they put it on and it's absorbed through the skin. Okay. Also, so it takes a longer time. It's going to take a longer time. So, like, for example, there's a drug we're going to get into and talk about called LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, and basically it's a small, it's a liquid, and it's put on the small looking stamp. It's called blotter paper. And then a person puts it on their tongue. Sometimes, it's sprayed in their eye, and it absorbs that way. And then that's how it gets into the bloodstream. So absorption is a slow way that the drug gets into the body, but it is still a way that the drug can enter the body. A bunch of questions on designer drugs. Designer drugs, they cause hallucinations and is a stimulant. Okay, so example would be ecstasy. Now, designer drugs are usually always man-made. They're made in a lab. So ecstasy would be one of them. And ecstasy, also called the love drug, the hug drug, we're going to talk about that. We'll get into some other types of designer drugs as well. Stimulants. So stimulants are going to be like nicotine, caffeine, cocaine, methamphetamine. They're going to increase heart rate, increase blood pressure. They cause a person to stay awake. It can cause a person to have that fake sense of energy. Hallucinogens. So hallucinogens are, again, where somebody thinks that they're seeing and hearing things that are really not there. So for example, like if they're using that hallucinogenic drug, they may feel like the floor is moving. They may see things in front of them that are really not there, okay? Like an elephant or snakes, especially some people will have what's called a bad trip. They don't have something where they're taking that hallucinogenic drug and they think that they're gonna have this awesome time on it. They can have a very, very scary thing. There's been people who have died because they thought they could fly. So they ended up jumping out of buildings, and it could be very dangerous. Other one, inhalants. So inhalation is the method of use. Different than inhalants. Inhalants are those organic solvents like spray paint, dust off. So what somebody may do is they may put the chemical in like a baggie. So like glue would be one of them, like a potent like super glue. And then they would cover their nose and their mouth, and then that's how they'd huff. It's called huffing. And this can cause a person's brain cells to just freeze, and it can cause them to suffocate and die right on contact. That can happen the first time. And this is why it's very, very scary. There is an article that I'm going to have you read when we get into talking about inhalants about this, because a lot of times parents don't know about inhalants because they're some stuff that is found underneath the kitchen cabinets, or they're found in the bathroom. And it's these substances, or in the garage, that, parents really don't understand, well, how are they even using it, and how can they become addicted to these things, which or die from them. They're very, very toxic to the body. And then narcotics. Narcotics is going to be a big one that we're going to talk about because of the opioid epidemic. And this is where somebody is prescribed pain pills. And what happens, of course, they can't get any more of those pain pills, and they get addicted to them because the doctor says only take the pills when needed, if really, really painful. If not, take other types of like Advil or Tylenol, things like that for the pain. So they end up taking these prescription pills, and then they end up, within 5 days, a person can become addicted to prescription pain pills. And then they cannot get any more of those pills, so they end up turning to a street drug called heroin. Okay, heroin is basically a derivative made up of these prescription types of things. Like the prescription ones, big common one, hydrocodone, Oxycontin, and these are very, very, very addictive. This is what we're seeing people dying of all the time. Of course, there's other things being laced in it called fentanyl and stuff like that. I'm going to totally get into that when we talk about those drugs. Okay. So I want to move on today to talk about the brain. Okay. So if you just follow along, I'll upload this slideshow too. Just fill out the exit ticket at the end. That's what I'm looking at. So there's the new grading system. If you do it, I will give you a C and the grades completed. If you don't do it, then it's going to be missing. Okay. So I would like you to do the journal. Couple questions will be on that. And then, but what I'm going to be looking at mostly is if you do the exit ticket. Okay. And there's a couple videos in here that I'd like you to watch, which the first one is a really good one about addiction. Doesn't matter who a person is. Doesn't matter how much money a person has, what kind of clothes they wear. It's really important to know that. So let's get started, because I know you guys are so busy doing other stuff. So let's just get right into it. Okay. Oh, sorry, guys. All right. So the introduction: puberty and changes in the adolescent brain motivates teens to experience new things and also to seek excitement. The front part of the brain the frontal cortex is not fully developed. So teens are using the part of the brain called the amygdala. This part controls the wide range of emotions. That's why some of, teens, they may get overreaction to a situation, and it can come out anger, sadness, and a whole array of different kinds of emotions. So teens learn to read other people's emotions, and this can be misleading in how others feel. Yeah, okay. The adolescent brain is vulnerable to stress and is often emotionally charged. This is very important to know, especially during this time where people are very high stressed, and, especially if they're not dealing with their emotions, it can lead them to using drugs and alcohol. So when an adolescent is using drugs at a young age, the reward center of the brain becomes heightened, and the drug hijacks the brain. It takes it over, and this can lead to the addiction. Okay. So these are your targets today. You're going to learn how the brain causes addiction, multiple parts of the brain you're going to learn, and the name of the pleasure chemical, which you should all know because I talk about it all the time. Okay, watch this video. So good, from NIDA, National Institute on Drug Addiction. Awesome. It's 2 minutes. Okay, what is addiction? Addiction is not limited to drugs and alcohol. People can be addicted to many things: food, gambling, shopping, or most anything that gets in the way of a healthy lifestyle. Okay, so when the person is no longer in charge of their life, the addiction takes over. That is when nothing else matters. People do horrific things when they are addicted to drugs. They steal from their family. They, say things and do things that they wouldn't normally do. But the addiction, the drug, becomes their number one most important thing in their life. Okay, so types of drug users. The experimenter. Look at this person here. This is a person who Curiosity is a motivator. Learning about the mood swings, learning to trust, mistrust the drug. High is a new feeling. and they can still relate to people. So this may be because they wanted to experiment, because again, the brain, you guys are always looking for something new and something that's going to reach that reward center now, thinking about now, not thinking about what what's going to happen in the future. So this is the experimenter. The preoccupied user, I can't wait to get high, thinking more about the drug, wants to be high often, blackouts may start, relationships get difficult, maybe even you may notice a friend start to hang out with other people that are using drugs and they're being mean to you. And you're like, well, what did I do? It could just be because the other people that they want to hang out with are also engaging in that behavior, and they just don't want to, hang around with you because you're not doing the same thing that they're doing. So don't take those things personally. Uses when alone, that's when it really starts to get, serious. The regular user, so the decision is use has been made, seeks the high, comfort and confidence in using peer group uses. Of course, going to parties, going to places that have the drugs, maybe even starting to sell the drug. They become cocky about it, come to school high. They may do it at home while their parents are downstairs. And the addict, no longer get high, just takes the drug to survive. And this is what I need you to understand. It is something where these drugs, when they hijack that brain, they do not let go. And it is very hard, especially when we talk about the narcotics, methamphetamine, another one, that if a person uses them, that they really are never free from that drug because the person needs it to survive. They're not even using it for the effects. They're using it because their body, if they're not using it, causes them to be extremely, extremely sick. Okay. And of course, drugs are their life. All right, so here's the different parts of the brain. You see the frontal cortex, the blue area up front, the dopamine pathways. This is where the dopamine, that's your pleasure chemical. There you go. I'm going to say this a couple more times because your pleasure chemical is the one that is your reward center. And when you do something fun or you see something cool, you hang out with friends, that is going to be stimulated. But what happens is when somebody uses the drugs, the dopamine basically surges, and then that part of the brain gets so used to that drug that they need that drug to start to really just feel that way, feel that feeling. And then when they're not using the drug, that's why they feel a person feels so depressed and so sad sometimes, because they're on such this high that the dopamine just takes over. And then when they don't use it anymore, they feel like junk. They feel, they can't sleep. They feel restless. They have stomachache. They feel sick. So this is where the addiction continues, where I don't want to feel this junkie. I need to use this. Also, too, this is very scary because some drugs, because of this, where if a person wants to stop using the drugs, it could be permanent damage to when they do feel natural high, when they do feel like before, when they saw like a rainbow, or it was, they went to the beach and it was a good feeling. They might not have that feeling. And that's a scary part. Methamphetamine is a drug that really does that. Okay, the basal ganglia, which play an important role in positive forms of motivation, including the pleasurable effects of healthy activities, eating, socializing. Drugs overactivate this, producing the euphoria of that high. Euphoria is that good feeling. But with repeated exposure, the circuit adapts to the presence of the drug, diminishing its sensitivity and making it hard to feel pleasure from anything besides that drug. And that is so scary. I couldn't imagine not feeling any type of pleasure except putting something of a substance, of a foreign substance, in my body to feel that way, that I wouldn't feel like a happy feeling for, or, something I ate, or hanging out with my friends, or working out. Those are things that activate my pleasure center naturally. Okay, the extended amygdala plays a role in stressful feelings like anxiety, irritability, and unease. And the person needs the drug to survive. The prefrontal cortex powers the ability to think, plan, solve problems, make decisions, and exert self-control over impulses. This is also the last part of the brain to mature. What age again? Think about it. Making teens most vulnerable. Teens will seek the drug compulsively with reduced impulse control. Okay, so effect on the brain. All drugs of abuse, nicotine, cocaine, marijuana, and others affect the brain's reward circuit, which is part of the limbic system. So drugs will hijack this reward, causing unusually large amounts of dopamine to flood the system. This flood of dopamine is what causes the high or the euphoria, the good feeling associated with the drug. And you know, as I keep saying, the good feeling with the drug, okay? Here's the thing. It's not saying that, oh yeah, a person should do a drug because it gives them that good feeling. Okay. It's not saying that. There's natural ways to feel a good feeling, a flooding of that dopamine, without having to put, like I say, foreign substances in the body. Okay, so I want to read you something. So the top part of this, those are brains, actually, brain, is a normal brain. The bottom is a brain where somebody used cannabis or marijuana, okay? So here we see a scan of a healthy brain of a non-marijuana user taken from a SPECT scanner. So SPECT scanner, you see it actually on the slide. It's basically like a picture, a 3D picture of somebody's organ. So the brain or whatever, okay? And of course the physician does this. So it shows the brain activity by detecting blood flow. The larger, smoother surface shows that blood flow to this brain is good. Compare this with the pits and disruptions seen in the other image, where there's poor or no blood flow in the brain. This can have a dramatic effect on behavior depending on which area of the brain is affected. Often these behavioral changes will be blamed on a psychological problem, when in fact, their genuine biological basis for them, a basis caused by substance abuse. And we are definitely seeing a direct link of certain people who have underlying maybe mental health issues. And it's exacerbated or comes out when a person is starting to use drugs, especially marijuana. So this should come as a shock to those who do not believe cannabis damages the brain. Cannabis squeezes down blood flow, leading to brain cell damage and death. Dr. Amen's research has found that it particularly affects the temporal lobes, the greatly enlarged black spots on either side of the middle of the picture. This area is responsible for memory. Dr. Amen suggests that this is the reason for the poor memory, the lack of motivation that chronic users often report. This patient was a 16-year-old boy who had used marijuana every day for 2 years. And the scan, of course, came as a great shock to him. So 2 years, so he's 16, he started at 14, which you guys are 14 years old. That's 2 years every single day. And that's how much damage already it has done to the brain. And a lot of this stuff could be permanent, where it changes the way a person does feel and think and act. So very interesting on that. Okay, so what causes drug addiction? There are several factors when it comes to addiction. Of course, there's a genetic component. Of course, blood relatives have a predisposition. Chances are they have the same tendency, personality, and peer pressure. That's huge. Of course, if somebody's putting themselves in that situation or hanging out with people who are using it, you're more apt to want to try it. Consequences of drug addiction. We're going to talk about tons of those. Starting next week, we'll start the specific drugs. Drugs are chemicals. Different drugs, because their chemical structures, can affect the body in different ways. So in fact, some drugs can even change a person's body and brain in ways that last longer after the person has stopped taking drugs, maybe even permanently. And we're going to actually look that picture at meth. We're going to look at faces of meth, because it really does age someone for even the short amount of time someone uses methamphetamines. Okay, injuries. More deaths, illnesses, and disabilities stem from substance abuse than from any other preventable health condition. Today, 1 in 4 deaths is attributable to illicit drug use. People who live with substance dependence have a higher risk of all bad outcomes, including unintentional injuries, accidents, risk of domestic violence, medical problems, and death. Because when someone is under the influence, they may engage in other types of risky behaviors. I also see, sexual assault or STDs, risk factors of those types of things can definitely, can happen when a person is abusing or even using these drugs. And health problems, weaken the immune system, increase susceptibility to infections, of course. Heart attack, major risk of heart attack, especially with cocaine, increases heart rate, increases blood pressure, nausea, vomiting, liver damage, of course, because everything has to metabolize and pass through the liver. So any types of those pills or prescription type of pills, seizures, stroke, of course, and produce global body changes, such as breast development men. That is going to be when we're talking about steroids. Okay, the different kinds of the anabolic steroids. And, this type of breast development in males is actually something that can be permanent. Okay, dramatic fluctuations, appetite, increased body temperature, and all that. Behavior problems, paranoia. Paranoia is where somebody thinks that people are against them, someone's following them. There's a lot of things. Paranoia, especially if somebody has anxiety, paranoia is a big thing, and it can be very, very scary. But when somebody is using drugs, that is a side effect of it, especially with marijuana. Marijuana, when somebody's using it, can cause actually an anxiety to increase or even get worse. Aggressiveness, hallucinations, so other types of hallucinations, addiction, impaired judgment, impulsiveness, and loss of self-control. Just gotta get that drug. Don't care how to get it. Don't have money. Don't matter. Take it from somebody, steal it from somebody, and it becomes a person's life. And that's the scary part of addiction. So I hope this kind of cleared it up for you a little bit when it comes to drug addiction in the brain. So this website here, okay, is awesome. That website, it is amazing. So watch it. It's more of a specific, if you're really into the brain, you want to know what drugs do to each part of the brain and how the dopamine, the reward center works and all that. That's a really great specific website for that. So I'm going to leave, or the exit ticket is similar to the last one. Is there anything that you want more clarified when we talk about, when we get into some of the other specific drugs? Okay. So check out my meditation video that I also added at the end. And if you can't get on, check out my YouTube page that always has everything that I upload. Okay. Hang in there, stick it out. I know it's very overwhelming and tough sometimes. I get it with all the work, but take care of yourself first. If you're having days where you can't physically feel mentally like you can't do the work, that's okay. Just wait till another day. Okay. Just because Mr. Arquette does the announcements and he says, okay, today you should concentrate on this, this, and this. It's okay if you are struggling, and also reach out to Miss Santa Barbara if you need anything, or any of your other teachers. Okay. Hang in there. Bye. See you soon.